Hello, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. Why is no one talking about the extreme dangers of the largest mass quarantine in human history? And the biggest shocker is mainstream media, which 98% of the people in the world get their information from. Not saying a word about it. The extreme dangers it's pretty obvious. You lose your liberties, your rights. They're already seizing people's properties. They're already prepping. Got quarantine centers now set up in the United States, all over the United States. And yet nobody is talking about the dangers. Do you think they just overlooked it? Mainstream media? It's pretty baffling that nobody's talking, even much of alternative media is not even talking about it either. Here's Beijing right here. I'll show you where the quarantine is at. Let me see. Here is Wuhan right here. Oh, my cursor started working. There's Wuhan. Most of the, the mass quarantine is being done in this area here. And this area down in here. Now that's just barely a part of China. What's going on in all the rest of China? What's going on up here? Haven't heard a word. Where's mainstream media? This is one of the largest events that's ever happened in the world. Where's mainstream media? Where's the live broadcast from China? Where's the talking to the people on the street? Is China not letting anybody in? This is like a bad movie. And the only place that we get our information from is Twitter. Twitter is the most powerful newspaper in the world right now. We would have zero information on this if it were not for Twitter. So God only knows what's really going on. It really gets me how people it's already been come out, the government is lying about stuff. They're underreporting the numbers. They're arresting people that try to whistleblow. And yet people patiently wait by and wait for the government numbers on what's going on. Why would you do that? They're lying. But the dangers are you lose all your rights. It's not worth it. And quarantines, which I'll show you in a minute, have a long history of not working. They just compact people more and concentrate everything. You're making 98% of the people suffer because of 2% of the people. It's ridiculous. and it's dangerous. Only glimpse we have is Twitter, and Twitter's probably not even showing all of it either, what's actually going on. What's taking place up in here? Haven't heard a word. What's taking place up in here? Okay, I'll show you. Let me see if I got this right. I'll show you the long history of quarantines not working. The bubonic plague in Venice, 1500s. But the efforts hardly stopped the disease from spreading. The Black Death ultimately killed 15 million people, one-fifth the population of Europe. Yellow fever, 1793. Let's see what say about that. But these efforts didn't help the outbreak nearly as much as the officials had hoped. Yellow fever was spread through mosquitoes, and eventually a cold weather pattern proved much more effective in stopping the disease. And now they're talking about warm weather is going to stop the disease now in 2020. I wish they'd make up their mind. 1832, cholera epidemic in New York City. But the quarantine didn't do much to contain the disease. By the end of June, the first case of cholera was reported in the city, and by the end of the epidemic, over 3,500 people had died, spreading the disease to other parts of the country. Quarantines do not work. They make things worse. And what is mainstream media shoving down our throats? Not even talking about the dangers of the quarantines, not even talking about how they don't work. Oh, look at this. This one. And their quarantines end up being racist. An outbreak in New York City showed the country's history of targeting immigrants for quarantining. The same thing's happening today. Chinese people are being shunned. Let me go on. 1900 bubonic plague resulted in the quarantine of Chinese immigrants. Quarantines are racist and they're unnecessary. They make things worse. This quarantine was lifted after a few days, but some Chinese laborers who were forced into isolation lost their jobs. 1907 Typhoid Mary. This is all on my website if you want to go through it. That one doesn't have too much. Influenza, this is the one that killed 50 million people. No information on the actual numbers of the mass quarantine or if there were mass quarantines. While these efforts may have helped the disease from spreading temporarily, millions of people still died, and these methods were largely seen as hugely socially disruptive, the NPR reports. 1918, and where does it come from? The first, what was it, the First World War? Yeah, First World War was just ending. And this outbreak came right at the end of World War I. It was partly responsible for it. It's humans that are doing all this damage. Public Health Service Act established a clear set of quarantine laws. Let me see if they got any more. HIV patients quarantined throughout Cuba in 1986. Okay, that one didn't say too much. But you can go through there and see yourself. What they, hold on just a second. Let me go back to my map. I guess, the point I want to make is the dangers and how no one's talking about it. Mainstream media is not talking about it. So whatever they plant in the people's minds, that's what the people focus on. Very dangerous, and it could be coming to the United States. George W. Bush talked on CNN about quarantining parts of America. And guess what? It'll happen blink of an eye. So just ask yourself, why is this not being talked about? That's all I have for this broadcast. If I see any other news that's breaking, I will go live with it. Thank you all much.